To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Business Today Television. Today, Tata Motors has come out with its CNG version of Tiago and Tigor, and I'm joined by the Managing Director, Mr. Sailesh Chandra. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Chandra, today on Business Today TV. First of all, many congratulations. Tell us about how did you think of the CNG variants, and suddenly are you planning to to venture into CNG versions, a lot of it now?
So thanks, Chetan, and thanks for having me on this show. The thought of CNG goes to the trend that we have been observing in the last few years, especially last 2 years, where it has been seeing some very steep increases in as far as growth rates are concerned. And this has been on the back of rising petrol fuel prices, and therefore in segments like hatches and uh, sedans, where customers are very particular about running costs and all, we are seeing that preference for CNG is increasing. Also, in these segments, the diesel models had got discontinued because of BS6, where it became less viable. And also, we are seeing that with as the CNG stations are increasing across the country, there is a traction which is clearly being seen in CNG models. And therefore, we selected these two models as the first two models to be launched in the CNG as a CNG variant, and with slightly different philosophy of making the CNG more aspirational as compared to a compromise choice, which was what we were seeing. And when we surveyed the market, it was coming out very clearly that customers do feel concerned about the performance, which lacks a bit in CNG model. There's always a worry around the safety part, and they have very compromised choices available with lesser features and all. So we took these into consideration, and these became the differentiating factor for us. And that is how we have gone ahead with launching the CNG models. As far as further penetration of CNG variants in our portfolio is concerned, I think we are carefully watching each segment because each segment and the consumers have very different preferences. And therefore, we'll be down selecting few other segments where it would make sense and where there will be enough customers to go for CNG variants and then progressively launch.
Right, absolutely. So, what models are you thinking? What should the customers wait for? Ideally, when it comes to new launching of the CNG variants, can you give us a hint or two?
Chetan, at this stage, we don't have anything which is frozen or even work in progress. But at the right stage, we'll be able to talk about it. But nothing that at this stage we would like to announce beyond these two models.
Well, absolutely. So, recently we heard that you had announced a marginal price hike of about 0.9%. What was the reason behind that? And are there any future costs that you would be passing on to the customers?
See, in the last 2 years, Chetan, the increase in commodity prices have been to the extent of nearly 10% of revenue. And if you total the price increases that we would have taken would be a very small portion of this increase. So to a great extent, we have tried to offset this big increase in commodity price through internal efforts of cost reduction. But still, there is a part which remains left, because of inability to pass it on to the market because it can have a major impact on the consumers. And therefore, that was the reason why we took this price increase, given the inevitability because of the rise in commodity prices. And we have not still been able to pass on, but we have always been moderate in our increases. And more importantly, that the customers who have booked our cars, and since there are waiting periods in today's times of supply crisis, we are the only company which has given price protection to the consumers who have booked our cars. So we are trying in this very challenging time to keep the burden less on the consumers, and at the same time accelerate our efforts so that we can maximize the reductions at our end, so that we are able to while protect our margins but also reduce the burden on the consumers.
Talking about margins and talking about burden on the consumers, there has been a long waiting list for your vehicles. Has there been an improvement considering semiconductor shortage is still on the large? So what is the status there?
So semiconductor shortage has been a problem for quite some time, but in the last 2 quarters, it actually worsened because of specific incidences in Malaysia and these kind of places. And therefore, the industry was only at about 750,000 in the last quarter, as compared to 900,000 plus in quarter 4 of last financial year. And challenge remains. In this quarter, there is a bit of improvement that has been indicated by the suppliers supplying us these critical components to the extent of, I would say, 10% or so. Some easing out, but still this remains the most uncertain part as far as the future months and quarters are concerned. Um, so that's the situation, and therefore this will remain an open point in terms of bridging the gap between demand and supply, and therefore the waiting period. But as you would have seen that we have been ramping up our supplies in the past few months, and therefore we are trying to best align our supplies to where the waiting period is more. And just take the example of Nexon, from just 4,000, 5,000 a month, we have taken it to 12,500 or 13,000 level. So there is an effort which we are putting to bring down the waiting period, but for certain models, it's higher, I would say. And it varies anywhere between 1 to 5 months.
Right. Sir, also considering you were talking about the increase in numbers, you've become officially the number two, second largest vehicle manufacturer in the country with a great market share. Sir, you've done considerable amount of announcements for the electric vehicles segment, and you recently got a big amount of fundraising as well. So I want to talk about the EV plans. How is it going? Is it on track? And what's next lineup now?
Yeah, so as we had declared that we will be launching about 10 products in the next 5 years, which would mean that 1 or 2 products every year. We are aggressively working towards that and trying to best keep the pace so that we are able to launch these products in the targeted timeline. Of course, the supply side will remain a challenge, which happens with any new technology when it is on the steeper part of the S curve, and that is something which we can anticipate. But we have been very proactive in terms of working with our suppliers, ensuring that there's a visibility going forward in terms of how we'll ramp up the supplies. Uh, Strong focus on localization. So we're just hopeful that we'll be able to best manage uh, the product introduction, as well as demand creation should definitely increase. And there's work which we are doing. There's still a lot of levers to be opened up, like we have not opened all the cities in the country. We'll open that. The charging infra will improve. So I see that on the demand side, this will definitely improve. There are many states which are coming with very progressive policies. So therefore, there are many enabling factors on the demand side. And therefore, our effort will be to work proactively with the suppliers and ramp up the supplies better.
Mr. Chandra, last question to you. With the union budget around the corner, what are you expecting? What are your expectations from the budget?
Yeah, so Chetan, generally, as a policy, we would like to align with the industry association on this topic and rather go with an aligned view. So I think you'll have to wait for Sam to respond on this, and our contribution to that discussion will be there. So I'll have to refrain from that question.
Sure. So one more thing I remember quickly, the government had recently announced that they would now bring up 6 airbags. The draft notification is out. How are you studying to that, and do you think there would be a potential price hike if such a development happens?
Price hike, I think, will be imminent because there is going to be an additional cost, but we are in the process of evaluation, not only the cost, but also the feasibility of timelines and all that we are assessing. So it will be premature for me to comment before we have the results are coming out of the evaluation that we are doing.
Right. Mr. Chandra, pleasure as always to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us at Business Today TV. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you, Chetan, and have a nice day.
You too, sir. Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.